Thank you, Comrade Chair. Comrades, I'm not going to be long. And I want, because I see many of the faces that were last time when I spoke are also here. So I'm going to assume that the things that I said there is known by many of us. So I'm summarizing that part of what I said. And that is that what we are faced with now is not something that has happened now. We have been guarded and pushed and cajoled into a particular direction right from the moment when the negotiations started. And those that wanted to control our country, beyond also the so-called end of apartheid, had a very clear intention right from the beginning, during the negotiations, to push us in that direction. Unfortunately, our ANC leadership, in the manner that they handled the negotiations, allowed that to happen. And that brought us to the point where we have this constitution that General Mutau referred to, which is a constitution which was deliberately designed in order to put us into a straitjacket, to avoid our country from being able to become fully liberated. To avoid that objective that the longest-serving president of the ANC, Comrade O.R. Tambo, repeated so many times. I used to listen to Comrade O.R. on Radio Freedom. And he never just spoke about gaining the vote. He always spoke about full liberation. And Comrade O.R. always understood that full liberation includes the economic empowerment of the black and especially African people. But the intention was to avoid that from happening. And that is why we have the constitution that we have, why we have in that constitution section 25 that prevent the land from being returned to the people, why we have clauses that actually guarantees property rights, and which it simply is the guarantee of theft, because the land was stolen. That is why we ended up at the first meeting where President Mandela went to the World Economic Forum at Davos, out of the blue, him announcing that the long-standing policy positions with regards to our economy that the ANC had held, which is enshrined in the Freedom Charter, which was further developed and strengthened during the years of exile by many decisions, that suddenly we have rejected those. Out of the blue. Madiba was telling us that nationalization is no longer on the cards. And comrades, I was one of those, together with the then economics unit of the ANC, who prepared Madiba's speech when he was on his way to Davos. And the speech that Madiba had said, we are committed to nationalization. I still have a copy of that original speech. But somewhere on the way, and in Davos, someone started tinkering with that speech. And it was on the basis of engagements that Madiba had with the big captains of industry of the Western world. And the person who rewrote that speech was Tito Mboweni. The clauses that committed us and which Madiba was going to announce right there in the World Economic Forum were taken out. When we listened to that speech, because it was broadcast live, some of us were ready to fall over out of our chairs. We couldn't believe what we were hearing. So we phoned Madiba after the speech. What happened? He says, no, you see, this young man, as he referred to Tito, told me that if I want to destroy the country's economy, I must make these announcements. It won't fly. We must remove them. And we said, but how on earth does a decision like that get taken by this young man, Tito? There is a National Executive Committee meeting of the ANC that approved your speech that you went with in your briefcase to Davos. How did it just change? Well, you see, we had to work on the ground. So, comrades, we have been manipulated, we've been maneuvered. And the reality that we are faced with, and that brings me to the situation that Comrade Spoo referred to, and which we need to talk about. The reality that we are faced with is that we now have to take drastic and radical action. Little temperings here and temperings there is not going to help us. Maneuvering here with a screw as if we want to just make sure that this Titanic, which is busy sinking, will still stay afloat for a little while longer, is not going to help us. The document that General Mutau presented to us is a very good document. And why is it so good, comrades? Because it is an analysis of the reality that we are faced with. And why do we find it so easy to buy into this document? Because all of us, when we read this document, we realize that reality. It is an expression and embodiment of our experience. So it's not something new. It's not something unique. But it's very important because it summarizes the experiences that we, as comrades who are committed to the true liberation ideals of the African National Congress, are already committed to. But it's important that we have this as a guiding light for us. That's the first point I want to make about this. The second point, Comrade Chair, is the importance for us to understand what it means when we say that we are now in a deep crisis and that if we do not act, we will lose this organization that has always been the instrument for the expression of the will of the people, the African National Congress. Because you see, comrade, we've moved along the lines of this plan to lead us up the garden path. But now we've reached the point where that strategy is no longer just to lead us up the garden path, but to destroy the African National Congress. To remove the ANC from our hands as a tool to bring full liberation. And that means that those who are now in the leadership of the African National Congress, whether it's at a regional level, at a provincial level, and especially also at a national level. And General Mutau told you the kind of experiences that he had in engaging with the National Executive, the National Office Bearers, and the National Working Committee of the ANC. We are in a situation where there's no perspective, where there's no understanding. In fact, comrades, where there is no leadership. What I don't understand is that we are still dithering on whether we should just, in totally clear language, tell these people that they must go. Yesterday, I was at a meeting of MKMBA marching and then appearing there at the Niehaus. And I was asked to speak. And I said to those comrades present there, and especially to the representative of the NEC, Comrade David Mahlobo, If you guys can't deliver, you must go. He took big offense. Huge offense. Now, I didn't mind him taking offense. I didn't expect anything else. Because I know General had shared with me what happened in that National Working Committee engagements and National Office Bearers engagements. But what worried me, comrades, is that there were some of the comrades around me, when I finished, who said, hey, you're too harsh. We cannot talk like this. We mustn't push like this. And you see, comrades, as long as we have that mentality, we are going to be, I don't want to use the ugly word, it starts with an F. We'll be finished. Because we will not manage to move this process ahead. So, comrades, and here I'm concluding. And I'm strengthening what Comrade Spoor is saying. I'm also strengthening what General Nyembe is saying. We have to now have a strategy to remove this leadership. And I don't care. If some of them here have a recording, they can record me. I will defend it in whatever new disciplinary action they want to institute against me on top of all the other disciplinary actions. These people are useless and they must go. Nothing else. So now the challenge for us is, comrades, how do we remove them? And I can tell you, comrades, it's not going to be simply by being part of the process that will lead us to the National Elective Conference in December 2022. If we think we're just going to move in that way, we will not succeed. I can tell you, comrades, I've done some research and intelligence. I was telling Comrade Pasha before we came in here. There are companies that are now being set up as communication and political and analysis companies all over South Africa. There's one in Rivonia, which is under the control of a previous head of national intelligence of this country. And I can tell you, 45 million rands went into that company from Remgro 3 weeks ago. And the intention is one thing, to manipulate the communication and the whole process for running up to December 2022. So, comrades, if we think we can just have business as usual, we will have the same results that we saw at Nasrec in 2017. So it has to be different. Yes, we must work within the structures of the ANC. I love the fact that we are going to the branches. All of those things we have to do. But we cannot wait for December 2022. We have to move faster. And I don't have all the wisdom and all the answers, comrades. That is collectively that we need to develop. But one thing I know is whatever we call it, we need an emergency special national elective conference, which must happen as soon as possible, which must remove this leadership. They must go. On top of that, yes, if they have to go, and there has to be an interim period of a national task team, and it's referred to in this document. Let's do it. But let's not stay for the whole of next year with this current leadership. By the time we reach the end of 2022, they will manipulate and worm themselves, also through money, back into control. And the other date that General Nyembe refers to, the national elections coming up in 2024, comrades, if that result of 2022 is that we keep this leadership and we still have President Cyril Ramaphosa as the president of the ANC and of this country. That F word that I used about the ANC is totally operative. The ANC in 2024 will be finished. Gone. There's another F word, comrade. That other one says finished. So, comrades, when we work, let's plan how we're going to achieve this. And yes, of course, Comrade Chair, we must do it here in the region. The current regional executive must go. Johannesburg is the engine, as we've said. It's essential as an advance for the rest of our strategy. But ultimately, it's not just Johannesburg or Gauteng that has to go. It's also most of the other provinces, and it is definitely the National Executive Committee. And the time frame that we give ourselves, comrades, to do this cannot be next year, December 2022. It has to be much earlier, and all of us must now work on a plan how to achieve that. I know we don't like marches. I know that marches, if we just repeat them, they have the same result, and the definition of an idiot is someone who keeps on going into the same wall and bumping his or her head against that wall without being able to get through the wall. So we need to develop an array of different strategies. I'm sure marches and mobilization will be part of it. But if it doesn't feed into an overall strategy of how over a short period of time we're going to get rid of this leadership, yes, the F word, the finish word, is operative for the ANC. So, Comrade Chair, in this meeting and in the future meetings that we have, our task must be, how are we going to develop an effective plan to get rid of this leadership now? Not in a year's time, now. And secondly, we have a document that summarizes our experiences and also advance to us a plan of what we have to do when we get rid of this leadership. But the first step, and from this one we cannot get away, comrades, uncomfortable as it may be, uncomfortable as it even made some of my fellow MK-MVA comrades yesterday there in the street outside the Niehaus. The NEC must go. This Johannesburg, our Regional Executive Council, REC, must go. The Provincial Executive Committee must go. Full stop. No compromises, no ifs and buts. That is the bare minimum to get us to the place where we can implement this document. Thank you, comrades.